So, when you see politicians or someone going for an important job or athletes who have had something in their social media past come back to haunt them. Well, I recently had something from my social media past come back, but it came back in a good way. And I want to tell you about that in today's episode. Hello, welcome to episode 189 of Commercial Real Estate Leadership. I'm your host, Darren Krakowiak, and if you've got a desire to maybe just work a little bit less than you're currently working now to deliver more value to your clients and to see your business grow more than it has over the past year, then you're in the right place. That's what we're here to help commercial real estate principals to do. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with us today. And before I get into today's topic around the importance and benefit of creating content and how it can come back to you, I want to give you a little bit of an update about one of my clients who, if you've been a listener to the podcast for a while, you'd be familiar with, or if you're on Instagram and you follow anyone related to commercial real estate, you're probably familiar with, and that is Daniel O'Brien. And Daniel last week opened the first interstate branch of Ex-Commercial Victoria opened last week. And this is a big milestone for the Ex-Commercial business. If you go back and listen to the previous episodes that I did with Dan, episode 18 and also episode 129, in episode 18, he was still working within a franchise group. He was a business owner, but he was a franchisee. And by episode 129, he'd built up the Ex-Commercial brand. He had, I think, 5 offices by that stage. And he said that he wanted to have 10 offices in New South Wales, and then he might start looking interstate at Brisbane and also in Melbourne. Well, the opportunity came knocking partly as a result of the content work that he does on Instagram. His channel is at Ex-Commercial _ on Instagram. And last time I checked, about 33,000 followers, and it's just been a game changer for him when it comes to building his empire and also building his personal brand. And the wonderful thing about building a personal brand is that it's something that accumulates in value over time. It just keeps on getting bigger and bigger, and it's an asset that no one can take away from you, right? And I've seen other people in the market sort of replicate the type of content that Dan is producing. And by the way, Dan doesn't own that style of content. I think he's just probably been a source of inspiration and motivation for others to start doing that. But the thing is that they're not copying him because no one can copy him because he is who he is. And no one can take away his own uniqueness and who he is. And the personal brand that he's building is something that is going to, I know, continue to bring him and his business more opportunities into the future. And just a little side note, I actually am going to be featured on his Instagram channel this week as a special guest, and there might be a couple more videos that you'll see me pop up on. And just to show you the power of these channels, Instagram, and I think sometimes I've probably been guilty of talking more about LinkedIn and underselling the opportunity on Instagram. I think I've mentioned before that it is a bit of a blue ocean in that there's not many commercial real estate agents who are using it effectively. So therefore it is an opportunity and most people are on it. But he's really shown how effective it can be. And one way that I saw how effective it could be is, and this is before I was even featured on his channel, but Dan mentioned in one of his videos, and he didn't even mention my full name. He just said, my coach Darren focuses only on commercial real estate clients. And just as a result of him mentioning that, I got inquiries from commercial real estate principals and a couple of new clients off the back of that. So it really does show the power of social proof and of someone else mentioning your name on social media. And this also happened to me again recently. It was kind of a blast from the past. I said before, like things coming from the past and perhaps coming back to haunt you. Well, this was a comment that I made on a podcast about 3 or 4 years ago that someone in the United States, his name's Clayton Collins, and he used one of the quotes that I mentioned in this podcast interview as a hook, which is, the hook is, the president is never president before he's president. And the point of that quote is to say, hey, before you've actually stepped into a new role, you're not experienced at doing it, but that's the same for everyone. So you've got to kind of just embrace the opportunity and take on the responsibility that you've been given. And as a result of Clayton tagging me in that post, which was a nice surprise when I saw it, I started to follow him a little more closely. And he did a great post a couple of weeks ago where he talks about how in one of his first jobs, the advice that someone gave him was to have like 50 coffees with people, to get out there and meet people. And that reminded me of some advice that I used to give to my team. And the way that I did it was we printed out these lists, and it was meet 20 people in 20 days. And, some of the team members moaned and groaned about the, I guess, requirement to get out there and talk to real people. But then they started to enjoy it, and they obviously started to see some benefit from it. So that led us to upping the ante, and we then said, let's make it meet 100 people in 100 days. And then we gamified it, like who can get to 100 first and who can get the first deal off the back of the meetings that they've done. They don't all have to be with potential clients. They can be people who can bring you clients. The point is that conversations lead to conversions. So if we have more conversations, that's likely to lead to us doing more deals. And one thing that I'm noticing more from people I'm speaking to in the market now, and I'm sure you've noticed it as well, is that in the current market climate, it's harder to get deals done. Things that previously took, a week are now taking 2 or 3 weeks. And that's partly just because people aren't returning calls or aren't meeting their commitments or keeping their word. And one thing that I think you can do to help move things along is to have a stronger relationship with the people who are helping you to get deals done, whether that's, your vendors or peripheral service providers, or the people that your clients use, their service providers that are critical to the overall deal progression process. So why not get in front of them and also build a relationship with them? Because I think people are less likely to ignore people who they have met in person. So in a recent episode as well, we heard from another client, Simon Borum, who talked about his strategy, which was to go and meet at least, I think he said 2 people a day for a cup of coffee, or sit down with, was it 2 people every day or 2 people every week? I can't remember. Anyway, so he had a similar strategy, and that's led to him doing more deals. So the point of the episode, the takeaway for you, is to set this challenge for your team. Start with meet 20 people in 20 days. Up the ante to meet 100 people in 100 days. Explain to them why you're doing this, because the market has slowed, because we can't just sit back and wait for inquiry to come in the current market. We need to get out there and make things happen and build relationships with the people who can help us to make deals happen as well. So my tip for you today is to get more of your team out there speaking to people, because you can't do it all yourself. And getting your team out there, getting them the practice in speaking to people will help them have those conversations, which will ultimately lead to more conversions. That is our episode for today. Thank you so much for listening. I will speak to you soon.